Okay, so Jordan.
Yes.
So remember how we talked about in a previous episode, if there's going to be a love triangle between brothers, like how are they going to resolve that? Like there's only a few acceptable ways for that to be resolved and ended.
Yeah.
Well, Fearless brings out a whole new way to resolve love triangles between brothers that I did not see coming in multiple aspects. Like it became a Maori episode.
I'm actually really excited because I've been dodging spoilers really hard. One person got through to me, I will say.
Oof.
You know who you are. But I purposefully have not engaged in any of the content because I want you to spoil it for me.
I'm very excited. I cannot wait to do this. I have been waiting.
Are you ready to get into it?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Jordan.
I'm Sheridan.
And together we're Sippin on Spice podcast. And this week is different. If you listen to us, we reviewed Powerless, we reviewed Reckless. I pretty much said at Reckless, this is the end of the road for me. I will not be taking the golden ticket to move on to the next book. But you were willing to read it. And so we decided to make this episode completely spoiler filled, where you're going to essentially tell me what happened in Fearless. So that way you can either A, treat this as a, recap episode if you've read it, or B, if you're like me and you just want to know what happened, but do not want to read it, Sheridan's going to spoil it for us.
Yes, I am so excited. I am a famous spoiler, so to get to actually joyfully spoil this for you makes me so happy. I'm so ready.
To be requested to spoil.
Exactly. This is full circle for me. When I texted you after I finished this book that I was left reeling. That was the word I chose. I was left reeling from reading Fearless. That was appropriate, and I'm going to get into why. I was left flabbergasted. I was left with cringe. I was left with emotions.
Cringe.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Jordan, I have lines to read for you.
Oh my God, yes.
I am so ready to do this. I have so much to talk to you about your bestie, Kitt. I have so much to tell you about him today.
Okay.
So much to tell you.
Listen, everything I said was going off of what I knew to that point, right?
Okay.
So
yeah, that's true.
I think you have to, if you're going to try to sell the different story, another shoe had to drop, right? I knew I wasn't going to get my Kitt ending, which is fine.
Okay.
But I mean, you have to make it make sense, right? And so it's a matter of how she does it, I guess.
I don't know that I'm going to say that it makes, I don't want to say that it doesn't make sense. We're just going to get into it. It's very, like I said, I was left reeling, and you're going to feel differently about Kitt. You might feel differently about Kai. Controversial. Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
So to kick this off, I think we should recap what we rated Powerless and Reckless. So Powerless, I rated 2.75.
Yes, and I think I rated it 3.
Okay. And then Reckless, I rated it 2.5 and said, this is the end of the road. And you rated...
You were a hater, and you hate Kai. Yes. And I rated it 3, I think.
Okay. So just to start this off, what would you rate Fearless?
I'm going to rate it just from sheer what the f***, and it's a 4, because I will tell you, I was not bored. We had made comments that we were a little bit bored in Reckless specifically. I was not bored in this book because, again, a lot happens.
Okay.
A lot happens. I was going to say, I've seen things online that said people were frustrated about the amount of plot twists because there are quite a few. I enjoyed them just because it really, I was every other page, I was like, what? It kept me invested.
So would you say that because we've talked about a subgenre of books before being a telenovela-esque, would you say that this book kind of kicked it into, would you drop in that telenovela subtrope now?
1,000%. With all the different plot twists, it definitely goes into telenovela territory for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm, last I remember, right? So I left off in Reckless. The last thing that happened was Kitt pops out that ring and is like, you gonna marry me?
Yes.
And then Kai goes into his whole sad inner monologue of it'll never happen and
Yes, and then we kick off the book. So I just want to say I have a lot of notes to get to. We have a lot to discuss about this, so I'm ready. I didn't want to miss a minute from you.
All right, lay it on me. I'm ready.
So we start off just where it literally picks up with what you just said. They're engaged, right? Kai is literally crestfallen. He's very woe is me. That doesn't necessarily stop for a bit. So maybe some of your comments there are accurate. He's very woe is me. He's very upset.
How long? What % of the book would you say?
Oh, 80%. I have details. I have nuance for you.
Okay.
But about 80%, he's pretty woe is me. I mean, he's upset. The love of his life is going to marry his brother.
He's upset. He sounded like Linda from Smallville.
He is. Like, you wouldn't want the love of your life to marry your sibling.
No, but I also wouldn't do half of what Kai did, so.
Yes. Heavy on the sibling, but we'll get there. Anyways, to be continued. Okay, so Kitt is saying, because Paedyn is like, why do you want to marry me? I just your dad, spoiler for Reckless, obviously, but I just your dad, why do you want to marry me? Like, she is understandably concerned that this is a trap. He says that the marriage is to unite the kingdoms with the elite and the ordinaries, because what it will do is it will create a united front. Kitt is saying at this point that he has seen the error of his dad's ways, of his kingdom's ways. He's seen the error of kind of subjugating the ordinaries and hunting them, basically, and all of that is wrong. He wants to have the marriage to unite an ordinary, Paedyn, and himself an elite, to show the kingdom that, everything the old king did was wrong, and to show other kingdoms, because he does discover through his new advisor, which we'll get to, he discovers that basically the kingdom is in a really bad state, obviously, because they've been very isolated, because all the other kingdoms do not do this whole separation.
Yeah. Well, I think they're the only country with power, right?
Yes. Well, there are monarchs of other countries, but yes, their country, like Kitt's.
No, I mean like ordinary versus like magical power. Let me rephrase that.
You are correct. So they need to kind of like open up borders, basically, to be accepted and trade with other countries, basically. Okay. His new advisor, which is very important, is Callum, which we see as the resistance leader in the previous books, right? Like Callum meets Paedyn. He's the one that kind of sets her up.
Okay. I forgot that. So, okay.
Yes. So very important. Callum then goes to Kitt as an advisor. Kitt accepts him and says, yes, my dad was wrong to do all of this. I see all your points and I agree. What my dad did was wrong and we need to stop it, basically. So he's listening to Callum. Very important. Very important. So then he, like, from there, basically, political vantage, he can't just marry her, right? Like, she is wanted for offing his dad, basically. So he can't just marry her.
Yeah. Well, he's the king. Can he pardon her?
Well, you would think. But he says for, like, basically the nobles to show face, he can't just marry her right now. He needs to put her through more trials so that she can show that she's worthy still to be the queen. And then, of course, Kai is like, absolutely not. That's my love of my life. You cannot do that. You cannot put her through more trials. And Kitt basically says, well, they're not going to accept her if I don't. The alternative is her. So, basically pick your poison.
Yeah.
Trials or being offed, let's say. So then she's going through the trials, right? I just want to touch base real quick on the relationship dynamic before we get into the plot twist, okay? She calls out multiple times. She's in love with Kai. She's admitted it. She hasn't really told him. She's really hot and cold.
She told Kitt?
No.
This is all internal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So she says to herself multiple times, I'm in love with one brother. I love Kai, but I want a friendship with the other one. And I see him as a friend. She says that over and over. What really bothered me is she really doesn't put up a fight for this whole marriage thing. She's kind of like, yeah, I'll go through trials. I'll marry you. Makes sense. And then she does this whole forever. Will they, won't they, back and forth. Well, I love Kai, but I need to marry Kitt to survive. It's not like you could just do something about that. No. And what bothered me, she's not kind of mad about it. We are alluded to believe that Kitt's a little jealous, and she likes it. She likes that Kitt's jealous a little bit.
So I think this is interesting because this is a big callback to some of the things I brought up in Powerless, which is, number one, that there's a love triangle, but the only person who knows it's not a love triangle is Paedyn, right? Mm-hmm, because I said, she was putting out mixed signals. She was giving Kitt that energy. In her mind, we knew it wasn't a love triangle, but to everybody else at the table, it looked like one. And second, this was my same problem with her throughout the whole series, right? She just kind of waffled around and there was no my biggest pet peeve with the plot point was there was no point in time where you thought, okay, here's my game plan, right? And this is what I stand for and what I'm going to execute. If you take any other fantasy novel, even if you start with like Throne of Glass, where she didn't even want to be a part of the revolution at first.
Yeah.
She still had a game plan. She still had things she stood for. She still had goals. And it just seemed to me like Paedyn was always just like, I'm just here to live.
She kind of is. She kind of totally doesn't change. Like, you're totally right. And in this book, I actually noticed it more than Powerless and Reckless. In Fearless, she does this more because that's exactly it. Now, I guess if we put ourselves in her shoes, she did just do something that's really bad. She could die for that, obviously, the king. So her way of seeking survival, she is kind of like, well, I got to marry Kitt to survive. I got to go through these trials. But she over and over says she wants a relationship with Kitt. She doesn't want this relationship to go away. She says to herself internally she sees him as a friend, but she kind of keeps both on. Like, she is not as upset that she supposedly is in love with Kai and has to marry another man as she says she is. She really doesn't act that upset for the majority of the book. Which is kind of like, if you're being forced to marry someone you don't love, the brother of the person you say you love.
Yeah. And you'll never get to be with the person you love.
Exactly. Oh my God. And then Kai is pursuing her. He protects her through multiple trials. He does not waver on his feelings. He often is like, I mean, he does go into woe is me. You'll only be my queen and I'll be the enforcer. You can tell me what to do. But he does never waffle in his affections and what he shares is his love declarations. But she kind of does this whole thing like, we need to stop. I'm going to marry your brother. She's like, maybe we should have more space. That's like after one of the trials. And then he's like, well, I guess. But then immediately they are, of course, drawn back together like a couple chapters or pages later. Okay, let's circle. So that's the character setup for now. Let's circle back to plot, okay?
Okay.
So she's in these trials. One of the trials, she has to find the tomb. And what's really interesting, side note, in Fearless, we get a POV chapters from the king when he was alive. So in the past, we get POV chapters from the perspective of the king back in the day.
What kind of, is he like Lionel Zodiac Academy bad? Or is he like...
Like bad.
Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say bad. I would say there are things that Lionel does in Zodiac Academy to a specific character that are way worse, but...
well, you know what I mean? When you hear it from his point of view, is there any empathy rendered?
No.
Okay.
No, and we'll get into that, but no. So we get these chapters of the king and his first wife, which is Kitt's mom, right? Like Kai's mom is obviously still alive, and Kai has a relationship with her, but Kitt's mom passed. So we get chapters about his relationship with her and kind of what happened to her. So one of the trials is for her to find the tomb, Paedyn, to find the tomb of the first wife, right? Of the king's first wife and Kitt's mother. So I wanted to read this to you because in one of the chapters, dun, 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 at this point in the book, we find out that the first queen had another baby after she had Kitt. But of course, that can't be, right? Because the other baby is only supposed to be Kai, but we know Kai has a different mom. So she has a baby girl. And I want to read this because I wrote it down. And that is what Kitt always carried this blame that he believed his mom died in his birth. So he's always like very like, oh, my mother. He really wants his father's approval and love because he blames himself for his mom dying in his birth. Well, no, she died, unfortunately, in another child's birth, who was a girl. And she had piercing blue eyes. And it's talked so much about how much she looks like Kitt's mom, I'll say, the first queen. But then, of course, what happens to that baby, right? Like, where did that baby go? So then we find out immediately at that point that, piercing blue eyes, the baby's also from the king's perspective. The king is like, oh my God, this baby, unfortunately, is ordinary. It has no powers, right? It's not an elite. And he's like, how can that be? My wife and I have powers. We're elites. How did this baby? And then that kicks off his hatred because his wife passed away and he views it as an ordinary, an elite. Even though it was childbirth, he views it as somehow the baby, his wife. So then he's like, you know what? This baby's got to die. Like, I need to cover up that I ever had this baby. And then now ordinaries are the enemy because they caused my wife to die.
So is the daughter his kid?
Oh, I don't know. We'll get into that. At that moment, we believe it is.
Who's the daddy?
Who is the daddy? It becomes Moray. Who's the father? So at that moment, we're led to believe that this baby's dad is the king, right? Okay. So then, we get some more after that. They go back and forth. They play the relationship. She needs to do these trials. She sees a friendship with Kitt. She's in love with
banter,
Kai.
pointless banter.
And this is very important. She meets a queen of another kingdom in one of the trials that Kitt sent her on. And Kitt specifically sent her on. And she had to bring flowers as a peace offering. That's very important. So then the queen's kind of like, this other queen is like, you know what? I hate your king. But I like you. So thank you for the flowers, basically.
She's like, I do like peonies, though.
Exactly. They're roses. But yes, she's like, and then she does kind of like have I see what you're doing. Stay strong. You protagonist, you stay strong, Paedyn, but I hate the king, but like I respect you, Paedyn.
Quick question I forgot to ask before though, is Kitt aware of her findings on the second child at this point?
No.
Okay, so she keeps it to herself.
Paedyn does not know.
It's just a point of view. Okay,
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Paedyn does not find that out until the end of the book, I'll just say. But we get that as the POV, who's this baby? Who's a baby girl without powers and piercing blue eyes? Who could she be? We don't know, right? Okay. And then Callum is really involved. Callum is this wonderful, kind advisor that, is leading Kitt to be the better Kitt that he can be. And at this point, at the beginning of the book, remember, because at the end of Reckless, Kitt is devastated. He's grieving. They call him the Mad King. At the beginning of Fearless, all that grief is gone. He's doing well. He is excited to work with Callum, to be advised by Callum. He's feeling good. His grief is over. He's excited to bring his kingdom and be a good king.
He has a vision.
As the story goes, so we're kind of at the point in the middle where she meets the other queen. She goes through her trials. We get those POV chapters of the king. At that point, Kitt starts to talk to people who aren't there. And Kitt starts to slowly become more reclusive. Because remember, he starts very
You mean talk to people who aren't there, like non-existent beings?
Exactly.
Like he's like yapping to himself?
Basically.
Okay.
We start to see some cracks in Kitt, right? Because he was
being
doing
poisoned?
so well. I don't know. We'll get there. You shall see. So then he starts to talk to people that aren't there. Kai really is the first person that notices. Halfway through the book, Kitt is like, yeah, I gotta marry her. But Kai, I love you. You're my brother. It's only me and you forever. That becomes very important later.
That feels very...
I wouldn't say it's... But it was very like obsession. It's obsession with Kai. Obsessed with Kai. Like, Kai, you're my only family.
You're all I have.
You never loved me. You're all I have, Kai. Really don't let Paedyn come in between us, Kai. Kind of speech. And then he calls out. He was surprised that Kai brought her back. He thought that they would run off together at the end of Reckless. So he's surprised, but he's impressed. Kai is showing Kitt that he loves Kitt more than Paedyn because he brought her back to him.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Well, then I'm now gloves are off. We're just gonna go. Then we find out. So she goes through trials. She goes through them successfully, of course, even though they're very tense. Well, then we find out in another King's POV chapter. Again, none of our main characters are in this chapter because it's in the past. We're reading the old King's POV. We find out there was another advisor at that time that, is maybe a current advisor named Callum back in the day that advised that first king before he ever got involved with the resistance. And then that may have been the lover of the first queen. So we find out that this baby girl, who could she be? Who knows? This baby girl's dad is probably Callum because they were in cahoots, let's say. And that's the person that takes the baby when the king's like, get rid of it. I don't want to see it. Then Callum's like, oh, well, this is my baby. Not your baby, king. This is my baby. And I can't kill her. So then he doesn't her, obviously. But the king doesn't know. The king doesn't know, of course, that Callum did that. Of course, the king doesn't know that the baby survived. So then the kryptonite of the bad king, So then Callum takes the baby away.
You know what, though? Here's the thing. This always happens in fantasy. And it's like, listen, if you want someone... Game of Thrones taught me you have to see the death happen. Otherwise it didn't happen. And that guy always comes back around. This is your loose end. So, if you're king, you watch your enemies die.
Exactly. So are you psychic?
Pro
Did
tip.
you know that the baby comes back around?
Pro tip, always make sure. Always make sure the enemies you off are offed.
Yes. Well, he didn't do that.
I could see that.
So then the king thinks that, but then the wife unfortunately died, right? So he needs to get remarried because he needs a connection with a noble family. He needs to get remarried ASAP. The king does.
Okay.
Again, none of our main characters know this at this point. This is peppered in as chapters in between all the trials. So actually was written well in this aspect. I think it definitely kept us very interested. You would read a chapter on the trial, then you would get a chapter from the king's POV in the past, and it would be super interesting. So it actually was written really well that those were interwoven together. So then we also get a chapter on his new wife, Mila, who is Kai's mother, right? Well, she shows up at the castle. She already got a baby. She had a baby with someone else.
Right. Right? Kai's not actually the king's
But he
son.
did not know that till the end of this book. So she comes to the castle and they're just going to be like, you know what? This is my son. You know, we're just going to fudge some of the dates. We're going to kind of keep it hidden. And then, you know, he will emerge when he's old enough that it made sense that he was there. You know, everybody.
He's been here the whole time.
Who's this baby?
What are you talking about? He's been here the whole time.
Exactly. So then, of course, we find out that is, of course, Kai. So very important. Kai is not at all biologically related to the king or Callum. So we have Kitt.
Or Kitt.
Or Kitt. Oh, that totally comes in play later. You smart woman. That comes in play later. So just so we can paint this family tree, we have, because it's important, we have Kitt, who is of the king and the first queen.
The only true royalty there is.
Yes. Then we have Mystery Baby, who is the queen, who's Kitt's mom, and Callum, the advisor.
Okay.
Then we have the second queen's baby with another man, who's Kai, is not related to the king by blood at all, right? So we have Mystery Baby, half sibling to Kitt, and then Kai, not related to anybody. He's just out there, not related.
Yeah.
Well, she survives her trials. And they get married. They actually get married. They kiss at the wedding ceremony at like 3/4 of the way to the book, like 80% of the book, I'll say. They get married. Paedyn and Kitt, they kiss. She, of course, we're also led to believe that she has a spicy evening with Kai the night before her wedding. Read it on the page, but he's basically like, "Do you sure you want to do this with me? It's very closed door." But I mean, you know what happened.
Like they bang.
They banged. Kai and Paedyn pretty much. We are led to believe they had a spicy evening the night before her wedding. So it is set up at this point that there's going to be 2 weddings.
Holy shit!
2 weddings. They're going to get right. They're going to get married. Can you imagine be like, "Oh, I slept with your brother the night before I married you. Sorry."
Yeah, because I just loved him.
Loved him, but you're my friend. But anyways, I don't want to lose a relationship with you. Anyways, so it's been set up that they're going to have 2 weddings for a while, like 2 ceremonies, right? So first ceremony happens, married, kiss. Before the second ceremony, it is revealed they are half siblings. Before this, it is revealed.
Okay.
And yeah.
You know who else had this happen to them?
Who?
Luke and Leia?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is Star Wars. Now, the author does a very good job of, it's a very chaste kiss. It's only a few seconds. Like, you know, it's not like you're making out. But they kiss.
You kissed your sister, bro.
Yes. So then she finds out that they're half siblings because when she's getting ready for her wedding, gets ready in the first queen's suite. So she goes through the first queen's stuff and she finds all these letters of this other baby. And then she finds a picture of the first queen and she was like, "That's me." Like, she makes a comment of,
"Who's that, you?"
She makes a comment of like, "Wow, those are my eyes." And then she literally gets married and she's like, oh, I'm his sister. But then this is where it gets so crazy. The advisor's like, "I'm sorry. We told everyone you're going to get married and there's 2 ceremonies. You got to get married. Doesn't matter you're related. I'm sorry. We told everybody." This other advisor, not Callum.
So then Callum is Paedyn's dad.
Yes, but we don't know that yet. Paedyn doesn't know that yet. She knows she is the daughter of the first queen, who is Kitt's mom.
Does Callum know who she is?
Oh, wait. Oh, you sweet summer child. Wait.
Callum. Callum, what are we doing?
Callum. So then the other advisor, not Callum, clear distinction, is like, sorry, you still got to get married. You still got to do the second ceremony. We're just checking telling you when your siblings. Have fun with your marriage. Yeah. Really?
Family tree becoming a wreath real quick.
Oh my God. That's so funny. Basically, they can hang this wreath on a door, basically.
Oh my God. Okay.
So then they're like, no, we're not getting married. I'm like, no. Like, and all this stuff. Well, then.
So Kitt knows now. Kitt's like.
She tells him.
No. Okay.
Well, yeah. So then they're like, WTF, like, we got to get this annulled. Basically, we got to dissolve this marriage. Well, then the cracks of a lot of things start to fall apart all at once. A lot happens, and I'm just going to give it to you rapid fire. You ready? So a lot happens at the end.
I don't know if I am.
The last bit of this book was like, I was like jaw dropped, just like every page.
It was like a tennis match.
Oh my God. It really was. I was like, this is some drama. So then we find out, Paedyn finds out that Callum is her biological father, which we've all assumed at this point, King's advisor back in the day. And she's like, how can it be you? Because you were the one that was like with the resistance, and you were the one telling me to take them in the tombs and like told me about it and stuff like that. And how could you have worked for the king in the past? Like, how is this possible?
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, well, by the way, I was the advisor and I was in on it the whole time. When I met you, I actually took you to your, but I've hated you from the moment you were born. Like, he's so mean to her. Basically, yeah, he was really, really mean to her. And then her real dad, she calls her real dad, Adam, the guy who raised her, was like a healer in the castle. And he's like, I set all this up. I put all of this in motion to use you. And I was the one manipulating the king. He didn't know it the whole time, but I've been manipulating the king in all of this. I was the one. I bolstered the resistance because I wanted them all in one place to mask them, basically. So he was like, I led the resistance to get them to be together so that we could. I was telling the king, let's do this. Let's let the resistance grow, because then we can just kill them all at once because we've let this resistance grow. And then he's like, you have been my pawn this whole time. I knew who you were from the very beginning of the trials when you came. I knew that when I told you and I acted like I was there to support you, that was all my plan. And I had I've been using you this entire time. So then, of course, she's devastated.
Hang on, though. This actually does make a lot of sense, because remember, one of my biggest critiques of Reckless was like, what was the point of the resistance? Because they did nothing. Like, they were instagone. So like it does give me a slight amount of closure on that, where I was like, what was you remember, I was like, this seems like the dumbest plot point, because like they did nothing. At least she justified.
I thought that was good writing in full circle, because you're exactly right. And it was weird. Remember, like, we thought Callum was sketched from the beginning.
I just didn't care about any of them, is more what it was. Like, I feel like typically you introduce a resistance and you're like, wow, I really want this to shake out for you. And I was just like, I don't give a about a single one of these people.
Well, for good reason, apparently. Well, obviously they were just trying to better their peoples and like fight the king. They didn't know they were being pawns. So I won't say that about them as a group. Well, then Kitt is getting more and more delulu. Like, as the book goes on.
So Callum has to be poisoning him or doing something.
No. Are you ready? Callum has not poisoned Kitt. Well, at first, Paedyn, we find out that Callum is a dual, so he's able to like read minds, I believe, and he can also affect other people's emotions, right? So then we're like, oh yeah, Callum has been using Kitt. Like, oh yeah, Callum has been manipulating Kitt. That's what you think. Paedyn confronts Callum, basically almost him, but he's basically like, kill me to show me you're not worthless, and she doesn't. She just knocks him out. Which is so up for your dad to say to you. That's terrible.
But that's again, terrible. Stop leaving loose ends.
So she does. And then he comes up and then she's like, Kitt. Oh my God. Because she only knows that they're half siblings at this point. So she's like, oh my God, Callum was manipulating your dad. He's been manipulating you. And then Kitt stabs him. And then basically is like, well, thank you for taking care of that loose end for me. And then we find out that Kitt all this time from way back has been playing Callum, has been playing Paedyn, has been basically doing everything that his dad wanted him to do for his dad's love and his dad's approval and his dad's affection. He goes on and on, pages of how his dad never loved him and how all he wanted was his dad's approval. He says it over and over. So he has been playing everyone from the start. He was not manipulated by Callum. He was manipulating Callum, and he goes straight up maniacal. He does not want to unite ordinaries and elites. He wants all the other countries to get the plague that off the ordinaries. So when he was like, hey, on your trials, go to those other countries, make sure you bring those roses as
oh my
gifts.
God, the flowers have like...
He poisoned them basically with the plague. He redid the plague. Like I can't remember the technicality of it. But like he like recreates it and like amps it up. So she takes those flowers to those other kingdoms. So then he's like, yeah, take these flowers. Take them as gifts. Well, he put the plague in the flowers. He wants total world domination. He wants to carry his dad's legacy and not just the ordinaries in his country. He wants to kill the ordinaries everywhere. And he wants to strengthen the elites with these fevers. But he's been giving himself the plague as an elite to like, as he's building it and working it. So he's slowly losing his mind and seeing people that aren't there and going through all of these things, right? Oh my God. So then we get to my biggest beef in this book. Are you ready?
I think I am. It's hard to say at this point.
Kitt goes full on like Scar from Lion King, maniacal, the big bad. He's been playing Paedyn.
Honestly, though, beat here that does make it more interesting. Remember how I told you if I had to change the books, the one thing I would change is I would make Kitt like have been a part of the shit the whole time.
Yes.
So
what you wanted is kind of playing out. Yes. So maybe it helps. Maybe you'll want to read this book. No. And now you know what happens. Okay, so then my biggest bugaboo, my biggest problem in this whole book, it starts at the very end here. Kai spends 80% of the book. I love Paedyn. It's her. I don't know that I could, listen to my brother. I want to keep you for me. I would betray my brother for you because I love you so much, Paedyn.
He wouldn't.
His brother goes full on maniacal, wants to kill thousands of people in their world, innocent people. And he's like, I mean, I don't know. I don't think I could fight him. I don't think I could hurt him. I don't think I could do anything at this moment.
Okay. I would like to yet again say, I told you so. This guy has never done a thing in his life. Not a day has gone by that he has had any sort of an idea of a future that he would like to stand by. And even if he disagrees with it, he's going to take zero actions to make it happen.
Basically, he's like, hey, calm down. You don't mean that, Kitt.
You don't mean that.
Let's talk about this. Like, you're my brother, right? Remember, you're obsessed with me. I'm your brother.
We're not brothers.
But then he's like, well, and then Kitt's like, how dare you? You're letting Paedyn get in between us. This is all her doing, Kai. He literally says this. He's like, it was always supposed to be me and you to the end. Just me and you. You're the only family I have. You're the only one I love, basically. The only one who's loved me. So he's going on this whole thing, you know. And then, and she's the one getting in the way. And then Kai's like, well, actually, she's like your family. He legit says that. He's like, actually, she's more your family than me. But that's it. That's kind of, and he tries to get in between Kitt and Paedyn because now Kitt is going after Paedyn to kill her. And he was like, yeah, I really wanted you to die in the trials. Like, I was trying hard to kill you in the trials. Is basically what he says. Yeah. And then Kai, he gets in between Kitt and Paedyn. But all Kai really does is like, whoa, calm down. But again, you love this woman.
Well, let's talk about it, bro.
Let's talk about it.
I got my hacky sack. You want to sack it out?
Exactly. He just said he wanted to infect everybody with the plague so that they die or, a leader. So, yeah, but sure. And also wants to kill the woman you love, but whatever,
Because he has no feelings on ordinaries. He still has no opinion.
That actually never really changes. That actually, there might have been
what is the point?
So, yeah, we're led to believe that member Kitt is reformed, and he's the one fighting for the ordinaries.
Yeah,
for the majority.
Which was the only reason I liked him.
Right. Well, I mean, and then we found out, actually he was being very bad, but yeah, for a while.
was a little feverish.
A little feverish. So then, So then, basically, we're going through all of these, remember how they do those trainings where Kit and Kai used to fight each other, and they'd be like, dodge, hit right, hit left. They're doing this whole thing. So then, basically, Kai is trying to get in between Kit and Paedyn, basically, and he's like, you need to, fight it out, but he's trying to do it as like the training fight, but then, but not actually fight him. And then, like, you would think that you would when he's trying to kill someone you love, supposedly.
Right.
So then,
and be like, I don't know, like a tyrant.
Right. And like a bunch of people, but sure, So then he's like trying to like, exactly.
Let's play sort it out. Am I right?
Exactly. Like WTF, man. But again, I was hooked. I was like, oh, I'm reading as quick as I can. I need to know what happens. So then Kit is again, he's like been poisoning himself with a plague. So he's sluggish, right? So then he misses it and Kai does him on accident.
On accident?
On accident,
great.
Basically.
Let me guess. You don't even need to say this next part. Kai then gets to have a whole soliloquy of sorrow about his brother and woe is me because now he's got Paedyn. But guess what? He accidentally killed his brother and now he's super bummed about it. Am I right?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. He basically holds Kit in his arms. But I have some quotes for you. This is from Kit.
Kai is the worst MMC. You know what? Come for me. I don't care. Kai is the worst MMC I have ever read in a fantasy romance. And I have hated MMCs before. But I will tell you that Kai takes the cake of do nothing, all thought, like, cool, you want a guy to write you poetry? That's fine. But Jordan, he's not a fantasy MMC.
Jordan, they literally say at the end as a nickname, they call each other poet.
I could have written this book.
Literally, that's a name, a nickname.
Oh my god, dude! I could have written this.
You could have. Okay, so now we have some dramatic monologue. Kai, imagine if you will, Kai is holding dying Kit in his arms that he didn't mean to actually stab. They were just doing their routine, and over, he's like, "You were supposed to move. You were supposed to." His
most romantic moment is going to be with Kit.
Yeah, well, listen to Kit. So Kit says, "I don't want to be a monster. I just wanted to be great." As he's dying, as he's gonna murder people. We're gonna get so much hate from this, but I'm sorry. If you're gonna try to murder thousands of people with the plague, I would venture to say you're a little bit of a monster. I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna say that you're a monster.
I think that's totally fine.
Right? I don't think that should be controversial.
Like this is just. Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And then Kai's response. Because remember, he said, I don't want to be a monster. I wanted to be great. So then Kai says, you are. You're the greatest Illyrian king. What? He wanted to people. Like, that makes him a great king? That's actually, you're in really bad company if Kit's the greatest king. I'm sorry. You've had some bad kings. Kit's response, I'll go gently for you. I mean, that's dramatic. Okay, are you ready? So after he goes gently for him, love each other.
Wait, what?
So Kai and Paedyn says love each other. After he says, I'll go gently for you. Love each other. So then.
Are they still married? Did the annulment happen or is it like a.
No.
She's widowed.
No. She's widowed. No. Well, Callum was showing up like, hey, by the way, I'm your dad and I've manipulated your whole life. And then Kit's like, thanks for bringing him to me so I can Callum. And by the way, I'm actually the biggest bad of them all. I did it because I wanted to be great. I think she should. Well, get this. So then, as we wrap up this journey, Kai and Pae get married.
Of course.
She has a claim to the throne because, she's
the only royalty living now.
She's the only royalty left. And then they have a daughter. Would you like to guess what they named their daughter?
Oh my God. Hang on. Kitten?
Kit.
They name her Kit?
Their daughter Kit. They spell it a little different, but they name her daughter Kit.
How do they spell it different? One T?
I think it's K-I-T. Yeah. I'm going to double check and confirm this, but yeah, I think it's just one T. I'm going to confirm this. And then we get a last chapter where we see Kit, the actual Kit, the brother, in the afterlife, talking to some of the people that were earlier in the book that he didn't really, that weren't maybe really there, or he didn't talk, talking to them in the afterlife and basically being like, I'm not a monster. And that's how the book ends.
I cannot tell you how thankful I am I didn't read this.
I do want to say here, I was entertained. Like, I was entertained.
Are you not entertained?
I was. I could not put it down. I was like, I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about this. And I will say she did a great job writing the POVs from the king mixed in with the chapters of things happening, because it was really like, oh, intrigue, grabbing our attention for sure. Those are definitely positives. Mm-hmm. 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 So if you want to be entertained.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
If someone said, hey, I've heard a lot of great things about the Powerless series, should I read it? Would you say yes or would you say no?
I would
a stranger encounter.
I was entertained and I was shocked and I was flabbergasted. So I would say if they're willing to kind of go through that journey, yes.
Okay. As a Kai enthusiast, I would say you fall into that category. Mm-hmm. Would you still consider yourself a Kai enthusiast?
This might be the biggest shock of it all. I don't think so. My biggest bugaboo with this book, like I said, my biggest issue was, again, he kept saying that, I want to be with her, but I can't because I can't. And then, and then your brother just told you he tried to give thousands of people the plague, the fever, and you're like, oh, I guess he's not so bad. Let me
name my child after you.
Let me name my child after you.
That I had with my wife, your ex-wife and half-sister, who you tried to...
And you manipulated her, but sure. And also I called you, call this person that went mad with the seek for power and call him the greatest king of your kingdom ever. Sure, Kai, sure. That really bothered me because I was like, and then I was posed with an ethical question, let's say. And then
I pondered in the mirror to myself.
If someone I was related to, because, well, actually, they're not even related, but let's say we had been raised that we believed we were related, was telling me that they wanted to kill thousands of people and via disease, was coming after my spouse or was coming after you, I would not hesitate to subdue that person.
Yeah, same.
I wouldn't fake fight them. I'm sorry.
Same. And I definitely wouldn't hold them as they'd fallen.
Lovingly, where they said, I'll go gently for you. Now, am I just a very jaded person? Like, am I just a jerk, basically? Because I'm like, maybe it was meant to be written as this beautiful moment between brothers. I think that's what we're meant to believe. I think we're supposed to forgive Kitt in this moment. For me, there's nothing he did.
But he didn't do anything to forgiveness.
Thank you. All he said is, I'm not a monster. I just wanted my dad to love me and I just wanted to be great.
2 books your dad's been...
Right? Like, I get...
Also, was Kitt unloved or was Kai unloved? Because I think we should back this little puppy up and remember who got the loving dad and who got told to go murk people and move on.
Exactly. And they bring that up where Kitt always, like, when we're going through, like, Kitt's perspective in this book of, like, how his dad didn't love him, he says, like, well, he had a role for you. He always thought you could accomplish what you set out to do. You
had a role too!
He was saying that the king was always like, I have faith in him. Kitt is saying that he felt his father did not have faith in him, basically. That's what Kitt says he felt his father felt. And then we've spent this whole book that you love Paedyn so much and you can't trust yourself around her because you don't want to take her from your brother and you wouldn't hesitate to
you bang her before the wedding.
Yeah, but you don't love her enough to basically actually fight your brother out of feelings for her. Who's trying
not a singular time throughout this entire series did he ever commit any actions on his words of love.
Let me think about this. He does help her in the trials. He does take actions. There is this point where she's drugged, basically, as the last trial. She is a surprise trial that she didn't know she was going to have. And basically, they drug her and they drug Kai, and they have someone that can, like, take on shapes, basically, or like an illusionist, let's say.
Like a shapeshifter?
Yeah, no, I think it's more illusionist. I think it's like a projection, but it's like a corporal projection. So then they take the form of Kai and she has to fight him. And this projection, she doesn't know in this trial, this last surprise one, that it's a projection of him. She thinks it's him. And she, even in her inner monologue, is like, he's fighting pretty hard. He's actually going to me. He's drawn blood because this projection actually is fighting to kill her. So then even in her mind, she's like, wow, I guess he did love his brother more because he's about to kill me. Like she's losing this fight. And then she doesn't lose the fight, of course. And then, of course, the real Kai rushes in and he's like, no, that's not me. So in a way, that's his action. He breaks out of being held, you know, like locked up. He breaks out of being locked up to get to her because they locked him away because then she would obviously know, you know, hey, there's two of you. There's an illusion and you. So they lock him up and he breaks out of that to come get to her. So, yeah. But yeah. So
all right.
He helps her in the trials. Yes. And he says many a beautiful word. Many a beautiful
in his mind
declaration. And to her, he tells her he loves her in this book out loud. He says some very nice things out loud, very romantic things. He does. He does do that. Like I said, they call each other poets.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I would call it too. In fact, one could argue I had.
Right. So I will say I was extremely entertained and I rate this book 4 stars. I think you had a really good point that actually she did set up some plot devices that came full circle in this book. She did.
Yeah.
So yeah, how do you feel?
I feel validated in a lot of ways. But there you have it.
Oh my God. Quick side note. I absolutely love 90 Day Fiancé, which is a TV show. At the end of every season, they do a tell-all where they'll bring all the people on stage and they fight and it's really a lot of drama.
Yeah.
And the host is always the same host. So every time like something gets kind of spicy in the tell-all, she'll stop it and she'll just be like, well, we wish you the best. And that is always her shutdown. So we wish Kai and Paedyn
That's what I have to say. I wish you the best. And your child Kitt.
Yep.
Named after your brother ex-husband.
Who wanted to murder everybody with the plague, but you know. How do you explain that? Like, oh, who am I named for? Oh,
the greatest king. Wow. Well, you know, here's the thing. I think adding the telenovela aspect at least gave it a different niche.
I totally did.
Once you add that telenovela aspect,
I enjoyed it more telenovela-y. I actually, like, I know there's a lot of comments online. People are upset with the plot twist, but I was like, give me those twists. Yeah. Give me, like, I'm living for this.
Yeah, because there was a lot of plot holes that needed filling. Need to put some dirt in those holes to an aspect, to a degree.
I agree. And I thought it was interesting that Kitt was the big bad all along. Like after his dad, you know, like he
But he wasn't. He was the greatest king
legacy.
Of Illyria.
Right. According to Kai. But, you know, I guess yeah.
Does Callum die?
Kitt.
Do we know what happened to the other countries they infected?
Yes. The queen sent a note back to Paedyn and was like, hey, so I like you. Thank you for trying to poison me with these flowers. We threw them out. Thank you. But she was like, I know this wasn't you. This was your king. She sent a note basically that she knew that the flowers were poisoned. So she didn't like, I guess, disperse them or whatever. She destroyed them. But she was like, by the way, I know you weren't in on this. So I like you. But basically big middle finger to your king. And that's like at the end of the book. So nothing else happens after there. So. But so no one got the plague. No one got the plague. Thank goodness.
Well, I wish you the best.
We wish them the best.
All right. Anything else you want to add before we wrap this up? I consider myself fully spoiled at this point.
Yes. I have shared the wild ride with you. And now my task is complete.
You really did do God's work with this.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
I'm glad I have closure.
Same.
Okay. All right. Well, you heard it here first through the grapevine. If you like what you heard, you can find us at TikTok and Instagram at Sippin on Spice. Do not come there to hate on how much we hate on.
Please stop. Please don't give us lots of comments. Or do.
You are entitled to your opinion, and we totally understand and respect that. However, this was ours. And, you know, sometimes opinions don't align, and that's okay. We can still all be friends.
True. We can agree to disagree.
We wish you the best.
You can also check us out on YouTube where you can find previous episodes such as this one. And you can also find other just like fun bookish content and videos on there. So please check us out on YouTube and like and subscribe.
And we hope to see you next week. Cheers.
Cheers.